Okay, it shows that we're recording. Bruce, what number is this? 5 or 6? I think it's
I,
6.
I think you're right. It's the big number 6.
Uh, if
We're
any,
first we're first graders now.
yeah, I know. If anyone has actually made it to number 6 here, how does that make sense? Speaking of which, you and I have been in the brand building business for years, for too long than we care to admit to. And yet overnight, what we've seen is some classic brands go away. I'm opening the door to let my cat in because he's very loud. All right, now you just go be quiet and be a good boy. All right, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, Cream of Wheat, and Land O'Lakes. I mean, I got a collector's item, cream cheese from Stop and Shop last week. I never even knew they made cream cheese, but she's going away very, very quickly. So these brands have built equity, spent billions of dollars against these brands, and within a week they decide to eliminate them. How does that make sense?
And and they selected them on imagery, like in the case of Land O'Lakes. I'm not sure I understand. And then you've got, listen, does that mean Prince Spaghetti? Remember the old Anthony, it's Prince Spaghetti Day? Is it only old Southern imagery related to food that's unacceptable because of its tenor towards African Americans or blacks? Or is it all food that is ethnically charged with its heritage and imagery? I mean, Kentucky, the Colonel in Kentucky Fried Chicken. I can think of very few images that are more negative related to the Old South than the Colonel. But that doesn't seem to be an image because it's become KFC, so they'll just remove him once again from the advertising, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Well, it's funny. It's funny you talk about the Prince Spaghetti because I remember as a kid seeing that. I'm half Italian heritage, and it used to make me hungry because I kept thinking, well, we used to have macaroni on Thursday nights, and on Sunday I want it now on Wednesday. And my dad, who was 100%, he actually loved that commercial, but he would say, "Yeah, that Prince isn't that good though. La Rose is far better."
which gets to the point I guess I'm making. It's in some cases it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, Uncle Ben, Aunt Jemima, the Indian woman on Land O'Lakes. Personally, I never found them offensive. Never thought of them that way. They had imagery, and that imagery was all food related to me. I mean, I wrote this down, because I didn't want to screw it up too bad.
Yeah.
The imagery for Aunt Jemima was always this incredible Southern cook in a hot kitchen. Didn't say anything. The imagery of her employers wasn't positive, but her imagery was always positive to me, as was Uncle Ben. So, they were, as the names implied, aunt and uncle, they're family members. So for me, it's hard to understand, but I do believe that there is a chunk of the population that just is infuriated and angry and put upon by that imagery. So I guess they have no choice but to eliminate it, but trade it for what?
Well, trading for what? And they always have a choice. They always have a choice. It's just really kind of interesting to me that suddenly this industry of marketing that we've been in is suddenly becoming the moralizers of the world. These are the people that brought you such spiritual icons as Speedy Alka-Seltzer or the Geico Gecko or Mr. Whipple or the Big Gulp.
What about that ridiculously fat guy? Whether you go Michelin tires or the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. The question is, where does it end? And then the other question is that that's all surface stuff. And I've gotten to the point that I'm very cynical about any studies that are released, because I really tend to think that people have conclusions that are in search of facts at this point in time on many, many different levels. This certainly doesn't defend the misrepresentation of people or treating people badly or whatever. So if you're really concerned, you need to look inside more. These companies, I think, need to stop yapping about these, like, I would call them onion skin layers of significance out there, and dive deep. How are you treating your employees? How are you grooming them? Who are you listening to? Who are you rewarding? Are you still circling yourselves in your executive chambers with just the, what I'll call the Harvard MBAs and the like? Or you're really reaching down so that they can reach up and make you a better company? I haven't heard a whole lot about that yet.
Yeah, nor have I. And in marketing, it's about the customer, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming that they're getting a tremendous amount of communications from their customers telling them that this offends them. That while they love the product, the imagery offends them. Now, did it always offend them and they looked the other way? Or is this a new enlightenment, given what happened in Minneapolis and what's happening around the country? I don't know. But I do know that the imagery for what it means for me is very different than what I'm reading about now and what people are saying the imagery is and meant to be.
Yeah.
So now I have a bigger issue with things like the Redskins, although that image, Washington Redskins, the Atlanta Braves, I never thought of that imagery as negative either, but there is obviously a significant part of the population that looks at that as derogatory. And I think if everybody called me white skin, I would think it was derogatory too. So I understand that part of it.
Yeah, I understand. And the question is, how much of it is activism versus really a reflection of what the moods are out there, and the so-called moralization that's coming from an elite few? That's something to really kind of hold in check. Some of these studies are showing that one in particular, a few years ago, there wasn't really that much sentiment for, but now there is amongst the Native American population. And to your point, I'm not, of that background, and I think certain things certainly need to change. But keep your head on straight too, because it's a very, very slippery slope where it reaches a point that you really can't say or do anything. And if you're going to get rid of something, there's probably a way to reverse it so that you're not just eliminating it, but you're still basically celebrating that ethnic group in a more positive way. So you're not giving totally up on your equity that is out there, and you're actually improving it somewhat. I do know that I remember on the corporate side, we'd get letters all the time from people complaining about everything. And they would read demons into, you name it. And I remember once getting a letter from the Catholic League because they were very upset over a program we advertised in that didn't portray priests in a very positive light. And they were going to have a boycott they're going to call for amongst Catholics. Now, that organization was not part of the Roman Catholic Church. It was a separate Catholic-related organization. And I wrote to the head of it saying two things. First of all, in a very kind way, no one dictates to us where we can advertise. We advertise where our people are and what they're watching and what they're consuming. That's number one. Number two, if you want to get into an ethical argument, we are also at the time a sponsor of Adventures from the Book of Virtues, which really speaks to a lot of the morality that you need to have in society right now. And I asked for an apology, an acknowledgement from him, and an apology, and to take us off the list. He ignored it. So this is my point, is that you have to really watch out for some of the bullying that's also going on the other side, because at the end of the day, if you don't stand up for certain things, they're not going to respect you anyhow.
Well, it's a belief. It's, and listen, you've invested a lot in this imagery. You have to be honest with yourselves. Is this imagery perpetuating racist stereotypes, or is it not? Is it just offensive because it's a sign of the times, or does it communicate elements of your brand? And are you better served moving forward with different imagery to communicate those benefits to consumers? I mean, those are the questions. I don't hear that discussion. Maybe it's happening at these boardrooms and at these product manager levels, but it feels a little knee-jerk to me these days. Not a lot of thoughtful discussion going on.
Well,
and I think these are difficult times. It requires.
Yeah. You and I have both been in situations where you know that decisions like this are never made lightly. It comes from a lot of in-depth discussion, and it doesn't feel like that is happening.
No.
So all you can do is hope that the decisions that are made are ones based on making sense and being smart about it. And the fact of the matter is, even if she's off this package of butter, life will go on.
Yeah.
I'm still going to have maple syrup. If they change the name of the football team, people will still come and watch it. So I think there's some bigger fish to fry. That's for darn sure. Anything else?
Not for me, other than old Frank Perdue. It takes a tough man to make a tender chicken.
Now you made me hungry. How does that make sense?
It does.
Bye-bye.